Welcome back, friends. It's Anders. Today, we are gonna be making the Greta Garbo. This is a sour style cocktail, and we're actually gonna be making it twice because there are two recipes to this cocktail. There's really only one accepted recipe, but if you dig in a little deeper, there's another one that's really good. So we're gonna make it. One is essentially a daiquiri riff, and the other is gin-based, but it is also a sour style cocktail. So both of these are gonna be bright, crisp, and really tasty. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more sips, tips, and recipes, and let's go make the Greta Garbo. To the bar. Today's video is brought to you by Babbel. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world, and I've been using it to learn Spanish. And I gotta say, it's been going pretty good. Muy bien. Pretty well, actually. My English could use a little work, but my Spanish is improving. What I like about it is it's quick and easy, so I can just grab my phone, do a quick lesson, learn a few vocab words, and then go about my business.
El tren.
El tren.
El andén.
El andén.
La parada.
La parada. That's my favorite one. It's also kind of like a game. You get points based on the questions you get right, and at the end, you can go back and fix the questions you got wrong, which I like to do because, well, I like a perfect score, but also it helps me learn. You wanna learn through your mistakes. Each lesson is a little different. Sometimes you speak, sometimes you listen, sometimes you are looking at pictures, sometimes you spell. What it does is it keeps it fresh, so it's not boring. They make it really easy to move on to the next lesson. Hoy tomamos el tren a Cholula. ¿A qué hora sale el autobús a Guadalajara? Babbel is scientifically proven to help you start speaking a language in as little as 3 weeks, but you can go at your own pace. Sometimes I miss a few days here and there. Luckily, they have lesson recaps, so you can refresh your brain before you jump into a new lesson.
¿Y dónde está el boleto?
Boleto, ticket. Sometimes I like to look ahead and see what's down the road, and I feel like that looks really hard, but then I get to that point and I'm surprised at how smart I am. Click on the link down below and get 60% off your subscription, and let me know what language you want to learn. Thank you, Babbel. On to the film. Greta Garbo. This is a drink for all of you cinema fans because it's named after Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo was a famed cinema actress. Now, Greta Garbo was Swedish born. She was an actress, classically trained, I believe. Her original name was Greta Gustafsson. She got her start on film in 1924. That is 100 years ago. And back then, those films were silent films. And she was noticed pretty much right away by MGM Studios, and they brought her out to Hollywood. Her career carried over into the talkies as well. She had her prime in the 1930s, and she actually retired from film at the age of 35. And then she kind of kept to herself. She didn't really like being in the public eye. Fast forward to 1999, and the American Film Institute named her one of the greatest film stars of classic Hollywood cinema. Unfortunately, she didn't get to see that because she died 9 years earlier in 1990. But let's talk about the drink, the Greta Garbo. This I find to be interesting. It's essentially a daiquiri riff with a little absinthe in it, so it has these herbal notes. It's pretty good, but nobody seems to know where it came from. In fact, everything I read, people just kind of brush it off. They're like, oh, we don't know the origins of this cocktail, but here's the Greta Garbo. Which is really interesting to me because there's another drink that dates back to 1948. And it's found in The Fine Art of Mixing Drinks by David Embry. I have it right here. If you look on page 247, there's a cocktail called Doctor Number 2, which is a variation on a doctor, but I don't want to confuse things here. Embry writes, equal parts of lemon juice, Swedish punch, and gin. And then he says, this is also known as the Greta Garbo. So here's a drink in print that says Greta Garbo. We know the date it was published, we know who wrote it, and it even has a link to the Swedish-born actress because he uses Swedish punch. So I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why this isn't the commonly accepted version, and this other cocktail is. So I tried this cocktail, all equal parts, and it's not so good. It's really sour, but maybe that's why it was forgotten about. So I decided to balance it out because it's not to say that this is a bad drink. I still think it has potential. So I'm gonna show you my version of Embry's Greta Garbo, and I'm also gonna make the more commonly accepted version, and we are gonna taste them side by side because I like doing that sort of thing. I like comparing cocktails. One drink, but two recipes. So there's value in this video. Now the booze. For clarity's sake, I am gonna be calling the commonly accepted Greta Garbo as Greta Garbo number 1, and Embry's version, the Greta Garbo number 2. So I'm gonna start with the Greta Garbo number 1. For that drink, we will need a light rum, Maraschino liqueur, absinthe, lime juice, and simple syrup. This is gonna be very similar to how I make a Hemingway daiquiri. Instead of grapefruit juice, we have absinthe. And it's obviously gonna give it some herbal notes. The simple syrup is semi-rich and the juice is freshly squeezed. Now, onto the Greta Garbo number 2. For that, we will need gin, Swedish punch, and lemon juice. We're also going to use a little bit of simple syrup. Although this isn't called for in Embry's version, I feel like it needs a little extra sweetness and weight in the drink. For those who are not familiar with Swedish punch, this is a Scandinavian liqueur. It used to be common to make this at home. You still can, I've never made it, but maybe one day I'll try. Cronin is the most common in the United States, but there are a number of different kinds out there. All of these bottles, by the way, you can get in my collection on Curiata. Link down below. All right, so we've got the Greta Garbo number 1 and the Greta Garbo number 2. So feel free to pick one and mix along with me, or both, if you've got all these bottles. Let's build. All right, I think I am ready. Both of these cocktails are gonna be served up, so get your glassware chilled. And let's start with the Greta Garbo number 1. So, in a shaking tin, let's start with the rum. We'll do 1.5 ounces of light rum, 1/4 ounce of maraschino liqueur, 3/4 ounce of fresh lime juice, 1/2 ounce of the semi-rich simple syrup, and then 1/4 ounce of absinthe. Now, most recipes only call for a bar spoon or even just a rinse in the glass, but I like a full 1/4 ounce of absinthe in this one, actually. And it's because of the maraschino. I feel that that's a big enough flavor that it balances with the absinthe. So, 1/4 ounce absinthe. I also like absinthe. Greta Garbo number 2. New shaking tin. I'm gonna make this one a little bit smaller. They all equal parts felt a little too sour to me and the gin got lost, so I'm gonna bump up the gin. We are going to do 1 ounce of dry gin, 1/2 ounce of Swedish punch, match that with the lemon juice, 1/2 ounce of fresh lemon juice, and 1/4 ounce of the semi-rich simple syrup. Now, ice and shake. Give these a shake for about 15 seconds or so. Grab your chilled glassware, double strain into the cocktail glass. Greta Garbo number 2. Standard garnish for the Greta Garbo number 1 is star anise, little guy here. Drop that right on top. Float it like a little boat. That's pretty, I like that garnish actually. I am going to express some lemon oil across the Greta Garbo number 2, but because the glass is so pretty, I'm going to discard this. There we have 2 Greta Garbos. Cheers. Ta-da! All right, I'm going to start with the commonly accepted Greta Garbo number 1. Cheers. That's good. I like absinthe. So I definitely get that strong anise flavor, that fennelly licorice flavor that I really like. If you're sensitive to it, then you might want to scale back on the absinthe. However, just as much as I'm getting the absinthe, I am also getting that maraschino liqueur, and it's just 1/4 ounce. The rum is there, but subtle. I think you could go for a bigger flavor rum and it's gonna work out just fine. But if you want it light and crisp, this is a good recipe to have. Onto the number 2, Greta Garbo. Embry's Greta Garbo. That's really nice. So I've made this a couple ways. I wanted it to be a bit brighter and taste the gin a bit more. So here I get the gin up front, definitely get the brightness from the lemon, but it's not too sour. It has a little bit of weight, which is good. And the Swedish punch, it's an accent, which is really nice. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily. You can't really compare them because they're quite different. But in general, I think they're both great cocktails. I don't think that we should brush aside Embry's Greta Garbo. I think it's really tasty, if you balance it out a little bit. So give this recipe a try, see what you think. If you've got a bottle of this Swedish punch, now you've got another recipe to use with it. I know you're probably already making doctors, which is what I normally do with this. So there it is, 2 Greta Garbos, 1 person, 2 drinks. Pick one, make it, see what you think. Leave a comment down below if you do. Thank you, Babbel, for sponsoring. Remember, use the link down below and get 60% off your subscription. Have a great weekend. Like, subscribe, don't forget your merch. I will see you next time. Cheers.